Hey guys, welcome everybody to Experience Fridays. My name is Sharan. I'm the founder of Red Experience Design, and this is a session that we do every month, once a month, where we invite speakers from everywhere to be a part of our discussion and lend their knowledge and give us an insight into their world so that we as designers can be better informed with the people that we work with. And today it promises to be one of the most interesting sessions, and because it's about crypto and the world of crypto and the UX opportunities within this world. Just because we want this to be a very interactive session, let's just do a quick round of introductions. It's not a very large group, so hopefully we'll get to it. I'll just call your name, and if you don't mind, just tell us what you do, and let me tell us one thing that we wouldn't know about you. Okay, let's do that. All right. So I'm just going to call you guys. You can unmute yourself and start. So let's start off with Diane.
Hey guys, you know my name already. I'm an experienced designer here at Red. Been working here for 2.5 years almost. One thing that you do not know about me, I just started my addiction towards coffee. I just started drinking real coffee right now. So pretty much addicted to it already. So yeah.
Are you doing filter coffee? That's the only way.
I started learning how to make coffee.
Good. All right. Abhijit Sarkar, are you there? All right, let's go into Atharva.
Hi, my name is Atharva, and I am a service designer at Srishti Institute of Design, Bangalore. Currently interning at Idea Culture in Bangalore as well.
Okay.
As a service designer. And one thing you probably didn't know about me is I recently started, cycling a lot. So I used to do 4 or 5 kilometers before, but now it's like increased a lot. So it's like 10, 15, and I just enjoy the ride that I take on my cycle. So yeah.
Yeah. Except for the times when you have to fight with the auto driver, right? Pushing him aside and all
that. Yeah, unfortunately that.
Right. Cool. Welcome. Saket, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Saki. I'm an architect at ADP Design Studio, New Delhi. One thing you don't know about me is recently I've started learning some basic bartending skills.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like I've learned making some cocktails and everything. That's it. Thank you.
We can reach out to you if you want to get serious.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Right. Cool. Shreya Gawali, do you mind just telling us a little about yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Shreya. I'm a UX designer, and currently I am working as a curriculum designer at Imagine XP. And what you do not know about me is I've been thinking about it since you asked the question. Then I was listening to what people had to answer. But about me, I've just started experimenting making fried food in oven. So it's all oven baked fried food.
Wow, cool. There's
Yeah.
lots of cookware being created just to address your kind of people, I think. Air fryers and all that, right?
Yes.
Very cool. All the best with your.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Sure. Ajay, I'm going to put you on the spot. Ajay Shetty.
Hey. All right. So yeah, hi guys. I'm Ajay, and I'm the CEO at Arcana, and I joined recently. One thing you wouldn't know about me, maybe I play a lot of football. I've been playing a lot of football of late. I'm the guy who wakes up for Mayur at 5:30 in the morning and drag him to the football court. And yeah,
I'm glad I'm glad he gets to wake up that early. I'm sure you're his best friend because of that. So,
No, he almost every time probably curses me because of that. But yeah, I'm the guy.
right, right. Cool. Welcome.
Thanks.
Jatin Lova, did I get your last name right?
Yeah, I mean, mostly, I mean, quite near. So, yeah, I'm Jatin. I run a design agency. There are a lot of things that, I mean, almost nothing that anybody knows about me right now in this group. But yeah, right now I'm very hungry. I am on my 1 meal a day plan.
Oh,
And I'm trying hard to focus on this conversation that is going to happen.
How long has it been? I'm guessing it's not a lot. You haven't done a lot of days yet.
So it was 8 o'clock last night when I had my last meal. So
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
hopefully we'll have like some food for thought.
I wish.
Cool. All right, guys, let's jump right into this session. I'll just introduce the speaker today. He's Mayur Relekar. He's the CEO of Arcana Network. And I'll let him tell you more about his project itself. Please, if he doesn't talk about it, please ask him to talk about it because he's feeling very shy about promoting his company. But nonetheless, he comes with a lot of, actually one of our most varied experiences, I think, in terms of a background. He's been an engineer at Infosys. And gone on to becoming a UX designer at Wow Labz and has run a food delivery company. So he's got a varied background, and I think that uniquely makes him perfect for to talk about the topic today, because it's about building for everything. Really, one of the things that he's working on. So I think his insights from all these various experiences really help him. So without further ado, Mayur, welcome, and please take it forward.
Yeah, thanks, Sharan. Great to have all of you guys, and thanks for the very kind words. Yeah, I do kind of pride myself in the fact that I'm a bit of a generalist, but yeah, more so like jack of all for sure and master of none. It is an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time, but I honestly couldn't be pushed to kind of dive too deep into too many things. Still kind of like blockchains happened to me, which is when I've really gone depth first, and things have changed a lot since 2017 when I first discovered stuff there. And yeah, I'm extremely glad to be like still be in the space and trying to build usable things here, for which there is a dearth of. And yeah, hopefully, I'm going to kind of shed some light into one specific area, which I feel definitely can do with a lot of help. And yeah, so I think, let's jump right into it. Okay, I'm having to figure out how to type things. There we go.
Coming through just fine. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, so I'm going to kind of focus on like blockchains and UX design, of course, and their intersection, and also what is typically considered like the dichotomy that this presents. And hopefully, like I said earlier, leave you guys with some food for thought, which we can perhaps discuss. Hopefully I can answer some questions and we can take it from there. But like a quick introduction first, I'm Mayur, of course. I'm the founder and CEO of Arcana. And at Arcana, we are trying to build like a suite of solutions that will allow developers to build more secure and privacy-preserving applications. So there is a bit of like cypherpunk philosophy at play over here. And this is something that has evolved since I've discovered blockchains. And this is the kind of world that me and the team that I'm working with would like to see, and hopefully we can get to that point. So some quick points about like today's talk. I'm going to be kind of interchangeably using terms like crypto and blockchain and decentralized networks. They're all very different things. And this is actually like a real UX issue, which is like taxonomy. And people end up using all of these things, over and over again. And this is a problem that needs to be solved. But I'm definitely not going to sit down and solve it right away. But these mean very different things in the real world. Don't kind of go and do this outside, or quote me that this dude was saying blockchain and then he said crypto and then he said all of these things. It's just for easier parlance over the course of this talk. I'm going to be focusing purely on what are popularly known as public blockchains, because they're the only ones that will support or need to be supported by cryptocurrency. And anything else outside of it is not really an area of interest for me. It's something that we've looked at, but felt probably need not even exist. And when I'm talking about basically private blockchains. And the last point is that this is not meant to be like any sort of discourse. I am by no means like an expert, but my hope as a founder in this space is that I can spark some interest in people to kind of get into this space, and hopefully some discussion right away and beyond this talk as well. And because God knows that we need like very smart people, and especially designers, people who care about user experiences and can fully front like and empathize with user needs. So let's hopefully, this should perhaps happen. Let's see. So first let's start off with like, why are blockchains even important, right? So first and foremost, let's like try and come up with like a definition of sorts for what are blockchains or decentralized networks or crypto networks, as they're interchangeable, like I'm going to be interchangeably calling them. So this is something that I've sort of come up with myself, in a sense, taking from cues from a lot of different people. And the idea behind this sort of definition was to keep it as jargon-free as possible, right? So 4 lines here. I'd like to kind of state the entire definition and, of course, go line by line. The first line is, blockchains provide primitives that enable people who don't know each other to now be able to trust each other and work towards a common goal with meritocratic incentives. So what does all of this mean, right? So blockchains inherently are at the core itself, when I say are essentially primitives. And what I mean by primitives is that they provide things like a consensus mechanism. Now, this is a bit of jargon, but basically a way for people to agree on certain things. They provide a data structure. So we've also heard the term distributed ledger, and this is another thing that kind of applies. It's at the core just a way of storing and representing data. And so blockchains basically provide these primitives that really are a new paradigm for people to be able to kind of do stuff. Now, what is that people can do? It is basically for people who are like at a distance from each other, or don't know each other, or completely are anonymous, to be able to now trust each other. This is something that has previously kind of not really existed in a very efficient way. We've had ways of like organizing people, and you'll have ways of organizing people. For example, our country is a democracy, and the way you organize people within a democracy is basically you give them voting rights, and people, it's one person, one vote. and people kind of go and exercise their their ballot to be able to kind of make decisions, and this is how people get organized. Organizations also have happened or still do happen in other geographies in different ways, where you have like either like a dictatorships or an autocracy, where there is either like a benevolent leader or a malevolent leader kind of just organizes people like sheep. And of course, we've witnessed this also play out in smaller degrees, where entities and enterprises and corporations are also organizing people towards like a common goal. And the reason I say that this has not been done efficiently in the past is for unknown people to kind of trust each other. It basically at its essence is basically trying to solve the problem of what is known as the Byzantine generals problem. And so to explain what a Byzantine generals problem is, it's actually fairly simple. You just imagine like a city being attacked by the Byzantine horde, right? Let's imagine like there are 6, 8, 10 generals commanding their own troops, and these 10 generals have completely surrounded the city. And now the question is, do they lay siege or do they retreat? And obviously these generals are at a physical distance from each other, and at war times, decision making cannot be on the fly. And this is actually something that had happened back in the day. It's a real problem. So what the generals would do is obviously exchange information via messengers to kind of come to consensus on what they should do next. And the problem is that either the general that was actually sort of sending out, say, a messenger to a neighboring general could actually be like a traitor looking after his own interests and trying to like kind of sabotage other generals alongside him, or the messenger himself could be a traitor and could actually relay the wrong message. And then you still don't have a way of people like being able to trust this system, right? So this is essentially like the Byzantine generals problem. And the solution to this is essentially trying to come to a way where all the generals agree on the one thing to do, an efficient way of doing this, or with a certain number of traitors still being in the system within this messaging and message relaying system, the majority still kind of are able to execute a particular plan and still achieve their ends, right? So it's basically either has to be consensus amongst everyone, or at least amongst like a majority where a minority is not able to disrupt the entire consensus or coming to trust process. So, and of course, working towards a common goal is essentially to be able to kind of realize some sort of, you could think of it as a service, or trying to, like, for example, in the Byzantine generals problem, lay siege on a city, whatever it may be, right? So for you, it could be you trying to hail a cab, and there is a cab provider. Now, currently, your goal is to kind of be able to hail the cab, and for the other person to be able to accept it and come, and you sit in this cab and kind of get from point A to B. You pay this person, so that's like the kind of goal of what you want to do. But now, can you do this with no third party intervention, and for two completely unknown people to coordinate and trust each other? And the final thing, which is that this entire thing is achieved with meritocratic incentives. This is like a key portion, especially where kind of crypto, and when I say crypto, I mean cryptocurrencies kind of fit in. So a blockchain or a decentralized network takes into account the amount of work you have put in as an individual to kind of reach this common goal. And this is crucial. Because typically what happens in, let's say a democracy, and why it's probably inefficient, is that it's one person, one vote, irrespective of what you've brought to the table and what you will probably bring to the table. And let's say I am someone who's extremely passionate about my country and I'm doing a lot of stuff in service of country, I'm paying my taxes, etc. And there is someone else who's probably anti-national and not really going to do so much, but our votes are exactly the same and it is not meritocratic. So, but this this would basically end up in people not being able to trust each other or trust the process itself. So meritocratic incentives are extremely important, where what you bring to the table is precisely how much you could also kind of lose if things go wrong, but it'll also determine how much you stand to gain.
So,
right?
Mayur, in a way, what you're talking about when you're talking about how much work you put into it, in a democratic system, it's like, did I study enough civics in order for me to qualify to, vote for it, right? That's how you're talking about it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? So did I, do my research, understand who this candidate is, what they've done in the past, etc., versus, did I get a biryani and a quarter and then go and vote?
Right.
So yeah, exactly that. So now that we've kind of established what blockchains are and why they're important, it's only logical to kind of discuss what its features are, right? And so feature number one is that it's extremely secure, and we've heard a lot of these things, right? So I'm just going to breeze over most of these topics, but Sharan, feel free to kind of stop me at any point. Secure because it's considered to be an immutable ledger. What that means is that just think of it as a database where once you make an entry, it's in there for good. What that means, and this is a common misconception that I'd like to kind of clear, is that that entry is not that it cannot be changed. For example, that specific entry cannot be changed, but that value can keep mutating over a period of time. For those familiar with this concept, will probably understand this, but essentially, I mean, your one takeaway is that it's an immutable ledger. Once something goes in, it cannot be erased, it cannot be tampered with, nothing of that sort can happen, right? So, for example, your bank's database is not immutable. Someone could easily add or remove, not easily, it's definitely not trivial, but it is absolutely possible for a couple of zeros to be added or removed to your final bank statement.
Like hackers do all the time, right? That's something that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's privacy preserving, which basically means that there is no notion of you providing well-known public identifiers to any sort of decentralized system in order for you to kind of interact with it. It's completely anonymous, and you are identified by these long-ass strings, which are essentially like what are called as public keys and or addresses, and anything you do there is while recorded and publicly verifiable by entities that have access to this ID, but otherwise to the general public, it's completely private. It's very transparent. It gives you these great ways to be able to, because everything is public and anyone can basically kind of go and look up what's on a particular blockchain at a particular point in time or currently. It gives way to very good audit features. It gives way to public verifiability, which is currently absent in most centralized systems, right? So just to give you an example, like Gmail will tell you that they don't read your email, but is there a way to kind of verify this? And the short answer is none. It is permissionless most of the times, or it's fully intended to be in an ideal world, which basically talks about how anyone could potentially be a provider of a service or a receiver of the service without needing to kind of take permission from any third party to be able to interact with this network. And this is true of all the truly like decentralized systems. I'm sure all of you have heard of Bitcoin. For you to be able to kind of be a miner, or which in this case would be a service provider, or be able to leverage the service to kind of transfer Bitcoin around, you absolutely don't need anything beyond like a computer and an internet connection. And finally, control. So blockchains finally enable this way of being able to decide who does what with your data. This goes back to my like Gmail example, where you now have to trust like pages like tens of pages of legalese to kind of be sure that your data is not going to get accessed, and no one reads these kind of terms of service, or otherwise you basically stop caring. Whereas the paradigm is completely different in blockchains, where you are front and center and you get to decide who can access what with regards to, say, your data or your information or your transactions.
I just want to jump in here, Mayur, just because you hit one of my favorite words. I want to jump in and ask you some questions about privacy. So why? On the one hand, you're talking about publicly verifiable information, blockchains, and all that. On the other side, you're saying that it's privacy, right? Could you talk about that, and also how these systems allow for privacy, and most importantly, why privacy itself is important?
So I'm going to do the easy bits and talk to you about how are we talking about an open private system, right? It seems like, again, like another one of those dichotomies.
Sure.
Things that should not work together, but they absolutely do. And just the simplest way of stating this is that anything you do on a public blockchain uses pseudonymous identifiers, which have no connection with you in the real world. They're absolutely random and generated by a machine that is computing your own machine, in fact, and which basically perhaps takes some input from you, perhaps doesn't, and it spits out this really, really long string, which basically has certain properties, and the key one among them is that they're almost impossible for them to repeat. That's how many permutations are possible within that string. If I understand correctly, it's more than the permutations possible for these sort of addresses or public keys is greater than a number of atoms in the universe, or something like that, some crazy number like that. So because it happens via that, you have a private system, and it's also privacy preserving. It's also transparent because everything is on this public ledger, and you can actually go and read, what is happening overall in the system, but you'll be none the wiser as to who this person actually is. But you will be able to kind of, figure out if something has happened or hasn't happened. So typically, let's take the use case of auditing, right? So if you would want to kind of prove something to some sort of a verifier or an auditor, you can absolutely do so without even revealing anything about yourself, by just providing a set of transactions that this person can go through, or if it's just someone you trust and it's not the general public, then you could kind of give them access to all of this. You kind of end up doxing yourself by revealing this connection of the real world you and the pseudonymous identifier. But there are more complex ways in which you can even achieve this without revealing any more information. So that goes into the realm of what are known as zero knowledge proofs. Sure. A simple example of that is, I'm 21 years old, for example. I want to buy beer, but I am asked by the liquor store guy to prove that I am indeed 21 or 18 or whatever it is. And so instantly people kind of hand out their public IDs, which reveals a lot of information in that process. but is there a way for me to prove that I'm 21 without even showing you my date of birth? Right? And this is something that's absolutely possible. It goes into like great technical details, but that's how, we can probably, if we start talking about that, then that's a whole other conversation that can go on for hours. Sure. But so essentially it is this whole notion that you can have an open system that can be publicly verifiable, more importantly, verifiable by yourself, that everything is actually in order, and at the same time privacy preserved.
Okay. So in short, let's take the same scenario you spoke about, proving that I'm of legal age for drinking. There will be some kind of a math problem or something like that, where the fact that I can answer it proves that I'm of that age, right? That's essentially the way it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I submit a proof that I am something, but you are none the wiser about the basis for that proof.
Right.
But the proof is enough that it's true. I know it sounds pretty crazy, but it's possible.
I think we are dealing with the topic in general, of the crazy topic in general. So it's hard for the course. All right. Sorry, would you mind spending 2 minutes on why privacy is important in this day?
Sure. I mean, we all, I love saying this, we've all sold our soul to Google, Facebook, and all of these guys multiple times over, and we don't even bat an eyelid, right? Google says they're not, reading our emails, and we're like, yeah, of course they're not reading our emails. They say that people are not listening in on, say, conversations, and I know everyone will have this one story of how this Instagram ad popped up when they spoke about like this camera that they wanted to buy. And while it's the general consensus is that nobody is listening to you, but there are insane mechanisms at play with your public data that where they don't even need to listen to you.
Right.
And get all of those details. It's absolutely 100% possible that and there are many cases where this is true. People can just do this by simply your location, your association with someone else. I read this very interesting story. I think I can explain this better. Is how a guy visited his mom. He had not visited for the whole of the pandemic, and he goes back, and now on Facebook or Instagram or something like that is getting ads for a toothpaste that his mom used, and it was not something that they ever discussed.
Wow.
And it was a brand that he's never used. It's not even like a popular brand, but he started seeing that ad, and he knew apparently there was something curious about his mother and the fact that she was using that toothpaste. He just noticed it, never came up, and he started getting those ads. So I mean, this is the kind of world we live in. It's only going to get worse as we'll have machine learning and AI and crunching all of these insane numbers. And while while a lot of people can argue that this is only going to improve my life, for instance, I feel intensely violated, and I think that's the general consensus.
Sure.
I think if you ask people, and this is like a common test, right? So I ask people, you're about to get robbed at gunpoint. You have to give up your one personal email ID, or you have to give up your wallet. What will you give up? Sharan, I'll ask you, what would you give up?
My God, I think the wallet.
Right?
Yeah, but I think most people would give up their emails.
No, I'm only answering that because of the question you posed before. So sure. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, with a little context, I think the general consensus would be my email ID is just too important. My 2FS go there, a whole bunch of things go there. And yeah, so this is what is untrue about this thing that people keep harping on about is that people don't care about privacy. It's a myth. People care, but it's just so hard for people to care. That's the problem. And I feel like, there needs to be like a top-down change where people stop saying things like, privacy is your problem and you need to look out for it and things like that, and make systems that are better and non-predatory with better business models and better kind of, ways of dealing with user data. And, just get people to like a better place, more trusting and more trustworthy place, and not have them kind of have to think about all of these sorts of things like, which ID should I choose to sign up with, what will happen to my data, and they'll just present one simple box behind which is like I said before, right, tens of pages of legalese, and I'll just say, yeah, I accept. And then, that shouldn't really be the case. There should be like ways with which we enable like a much more secure and privacy preserving future for users and their data.
So in a way, you're saying there used to be a time, just because I have gray hairs, I can talk about this. But there used to be a time like when you wanted, if you had to host a website, you actually had to set up the server, find the static IP address, plug it in, and do the whole thing yourself. But today you can actually get that service provided by somebody else.
Exactly.
In a similar way, you're saying privacy can be a service that can actually be provided.
100%, right? So, and all of this requires like, a lot of innovation when it comes to tech, when it comes to especially design, and everything else remains the same, right? So just making people's lives easier. And so why not with, privacy?
Okay. Cool, thank you.
So yeah.
Sorry, I think there's a question.
Yeah.
Not a question, but yeah, maybe just a thought. I mean, just to maybe continue from where you left off. So it's not a question of completely keeping user data private. It's essentially giving the user control to, as to what to expose and what not. For example, there are some users who might actually want some insights. I'm sorry, not insights. So there are companies who rely on these customer insights and then do all these mass customization, mass personalization, things like that. It's a question of giving the control to users as to what part of my data is okay to be exposed and what should remain within. Correct?
Right.
Yeah, partially yes, I would agree, but again, I would like pushing the onus back to the user of like the user deciding is very important. It shows ownership, but it's also important to kind of educate what exactly happens when they give permission, right? What does that exactly mean? So that is something that we really need to do. And you're absolutely right about needing to kind of expose data, but for various things, right? For example, in the world of like medicines and healthcare and stuff like that, aggregation of user data is very, very important. But there has to be a very clear way of being able to delineate the person from the data, and not have those things very tightly coupled.
Right. Yep.
Cool. So yeah, so now we've kind of understood all of like the features of what blockchain provides, and these are all like excellent like the basis for like very good user experiences, right? So which user would say no to any of these things? And you'd think that blockchains are the panacea and everything is wonderful because they bring all of this into the fold. But what about like general usability, right? All of what I said would be actually like very, very like, literally useless if users couldn't really kind of leverage it to the maximum, or at least the way they're already kind of used to leveraging all of this stuff, right? So like a simple like, sort of example that I'd like to kind of show here is of like a general application where let's think of it like a social network of sorts, we have a very simple user story where the user needs to be able to upload a photo, right? So what's the process that you typically follow in a standard social network sort of design, right? So you'd have like a nice friendly interface on the app to kind of implement this. On your server, you'd probably have like some sort of like an upload service. And once the upload is done, you kind of record that action on whatever, on the ledger or the database that you're using. And finally, you also kind of ensure that, you know, the photo itself is persistently stored on a reliable sort of backend, right? So this is the world of Web 2, as it is called, and what we are all used to. But in the world of blockchains, this is where more and more complications start coming into play. Now, for the user to be able to kind of upload or access the application also, the first question you end up asking is, you know, do they have these public-private key pairs to be able to access the app for them to be able to perform certain operations? Then they have things where people are familiar with blockchain, you know, is do they have enough tokens or cryptocurrencies to pay for as transaction fees to the network? And this is a common paradigm. Then the server that you're using to kind of build this upload service on, is this censorable? Will someone tomorrow come and say, sorry, boss, you know, we can't support this because, you know, and we'll have to kind of shut you down. And then, of course, you know, how fast is this operation of, you know, getting this transaction and mining it? And you guys might be familiar with, you know, how the Bitcoin network and Ethereum kind of take like many seconds, if not minutes, to kind of be able to process like these transactions. And wherever you're going to store it, is it like really reliable and robust, right, while being decentralized? So these all become like very important questions that end up like hampering usability. And these are like very new paradigms that now designers, builders, developers need to start thinking of. And just to kind of further reiterate like the usability aspects, right? So I love this one. I'd come across this when in the early days of when I got into crypto. I'm not sure if this is still up, but my Ether wallet was like my entry point into crypto, and, you know, buying some tokens and being able to kind of store them somewhere. So it's basically like a cryptocurrency wallet. And this was their guides page, right? And this was available front and center when you went to my wallet, and they listed these 18 odd points, right? And I went through all of these, and when I remember going through these things and not realizing or not understanding most of these things, and the sheer number of them, like, you know, in the sense for someone to be able to kind of interact with like a user facing B2C sort of product is just insane, right? You have these 18 points, almost all of them end up making you look like a dunce if you're coming here for the first time. And I love that, like the last point that they stated, which is like, use your brain. I was like, wow, okay. This is what we're dealing with. And and none of this is without reason, right? These 18 points, all of them make perfect sense. If you have a little knowledge about, you know, what happens in this space or what used to happen, a lot of these things are not valid anymore, or have been fixed also. But the point is that, you know, none of these are unnecessary, but this is the case that, you know, we have to deal with a system that's going to prescribe these 18 things, and then lastly it's going to tell you, boss, you need to figure this stuff out, right? Because essentially no one wants the onus of, you know, you losing money you losing funds. So it's all like, you get, you pass down the burden, like down the chain, right? We've seen this happen along the way, especially with our taxes, right? So this is exactly the same when it comes to like responsibility and accountability, and it all gets pushed down to the user, and now the user is like left wondering, is this something that I even want to do? And all of this stuff just ends up hampering usability at large. I'm going to pause here for a moment in case, Sharan, you have any other points, because I want to now dive into like, what are the possibilities and other things.
Sure. I'll just ask you, I mean, this is insane that somebody has to jump through this many hoops in order to make, a blockchain, an application running on blockchain work. It's quite insane. I think, forget about looking at this list. I think the fact that you need gas, for example, that itself is a stumbling block for a lot of people. I mean, when you say you buy crypto in order to start using this thing, I think we've already lost like 90% of the audience,
Exactly, right. So it was a common problem for I think every one of us, even back in 2017, is and even so now, nothing's changed. Is that if I want to interact with the network and do some funky stuff with it, or just fiddle around, or really maybe try and like improve the quality of my life, get all this privacy and all of this all this wonderful money that comes with cryptocurrencies skyrocketing in price and things like that, I need to first get hold of some cryptocurrency, right? To make cryptocurrency, I need to first buy cryptocurrency, and my on-ramp usually is a centralized exchange. Not usually, has to be a centralized exchange. So to get decentralized, I need to first use something extremely centralized, which like completely takes all my KYC, everything. And now I'll have the opportunity to kind of start, perhaps doing stuff, and in the process, expending unknown amounts of money to be able to kind of fiddle around, play with things and stuff like that. I mean, this is, if you kind of pitch this to say a SaaS product building, I don't know, like like a laundromat online or something like that. They're absolutely going to flip their minds, right? It's hard enough trying to sell a free product to users. Try selling a paid product to users, where you'll be paying from day one for something that may or may not actually work for you, right? So that's sort of like the paradigm that exists and needs huge improvements.
But like I think the people not wearing shoes problem, I don't know if enough of our users, enough of our attendees know this story, but essentially there's a sales guy who's sent to this country where nobody's wearing shoes. So a shoe sales guy is sent to this country where nobody's wearing shoes, and he calls back the next day and he says, take me back here or take me back home, because nobody here wears shoes. And the second guy goes in, and so the company brings the first guy back and sends the second guy and says, go try to sell shoes. And the guy calls back the next day and says, send me as many shoes as you have. Nobody here wears shoes. So I think it's a matter of perspective, right? All these problems are opportunities for UX designers.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the possibilities are limitless. I hope to like kind of shed some light on some of the reasons behind why there are these usability issues, and I think that plus the problems themselves, plus the reasoning behind them, which is very important to understand, because like I said before, none of this is without reason, right? All of these things are very important. Some of these can be easily overcome. Some of these are cultural issues. Some of these are very hard technical problems, but not unsolvable, right? So it requires like all hands on deck sort of approach to be able to kind of fix this. But yeah, I mean, end of the day, I think nothing changes. I mean, the most important fact that doesn't change is that everything should still start from users.
Right.
which is still true for blockchain, AI, ML, whatever you build tomorrow.
Sure.
Right.
The gold at the end of the rainbow is totally worth it, right? This future where people are protected. Yeah.
100%. So there are I hear that roughly around 1 million people, or maybe I have my numbers wrong by orders of magnitude, but who've actually kind of dived head first into this space and kind of leveraging all of the benefits in some way or the other, and they are really well off, much better off for it. And it's true of me and so many other people. I think it's just only a matter of time, and we can see market movements also happening along these lines, where I personally feel like large parts of the internet will be redesigned to be more decentralized. And yeah, absolutely, it's coming for all of us for sure.
Okay. Guys, any questions? Please jump in and ask. No worries. Go ahead, Mayur. You can continue.
So yeah, let's kind of try and figure out some of these reasons, right? Clearly, it's a brave new world. There's a lot of new stuff that's come into the picture. Most notably, I think you could talk about stuff like key management, which usually is something that you would never burden users with, something that happened on some server somewhere. But obviously, for privacy preservation, no one except the users need to kind of have access to their keys. So now you need client-side key management, and this is not client-side key management is not novel in itself, but it's not a solved problem, right? And there are many aspects to this that need to kind of be figured out. And it's one of the biggest problems, like solving the issue of wallets and key management. If this is something that people are able to kind of definitely resolve, it opens up a whole host of use cases tomorrow. And but I think it's just a matter of time. Cryptographic primitives, so basically everything, all this privacy and security comes from being able to kind of cryptographically secure stuff, encryption and decryption, and a lot of stuff that used to none of this is actually new. Encryption and decryption algorithms have been there around for decades, and we still use the exact same ones. It's just that hardware has caught up with the kind of algorithms that were prescribed in research papers in the past. And just to give you an idea, like cryptography in a browser is as young as 2015 or 16. Before that, it wasn't even possible to do on a browser. So I mean, this is what we're talking about. It's all completely new, novel stuff, new paradigms, like we kind of discussed before. So this is definitely one of the most important reasons for like a lack of like great UX. Other reasons are no well-established factors of trust, and general lack of standardization when it comes to being able to secure things. We all remember, this very sign logo that used to exist in the early days of the internet, probably still does, I don't know. And you see a website that had this logo, and then you're like, I'm safe, I can use this sort of like website safely. And so that became like a very clear indicator of trust for people, and or the trustworthiness of something. And just standardization, we all used to kind of now SSLs and HTTPS, the little lock symbol on the browser will tell you that you can now trust this site, or even most of the browsers will now warn you if there is someone doesn't have their SSL certificate, and would probably even not allow you to go to that site if you have your settings right. But this is all born out of like the standardization of certificate exchange, which basically comes with SSL. but there's no such sort of thing per se in this space. So because of these sorts of things, you have users kind of trying to still shy away from all of these things. The other thing is that decentralized networks are generally slow, right? So if you try and imagine like a social network on one of these sites, if I have to hit like on a post and it's going to take me like 20 seconds for that to happen, I'm not going to be terribly excited as a user, right?
Right.
But this is the sort of price you pay for these disparate groups of people coming to consensus. It is a time-consuming process. There are, of course, solutions already available on the horizon that kind of compromise a bit on the security and the decentralized nature of things, but kind of start giving you the speed. If anyone kind of tells you that they know a blockchain that is able to kind of achieve speed and decentralization and security, then it's really not true, right? And this is a well-established phenomena, which is called like the decentralization trilemma. I'll not go into those details, but yeah. The other reason, which I think is like very curious, is the number one use case for blockchain so far are finance related use cases. Obviously, because of cryptocurrencies, now you are enabling programmatic money, so you can do all these real funky things, and there's this whole new wave called DeFi or decentralized finance, when people are going absolutely apeshit over the possibilities. But my take on all of this is that because the primary use cases that we are seeing right now are finance related and money is involved, users don't care as much about user experiences. I've always felt like you will go the extra mile when it comes to stuff to do with your money. And I'm stating this from my own experiences, where I have to deal with this absolutely sorry excuse of an interface for my mutual funds. And I will happily do it. And, I will like hit refresh, and I will go back and I'll get logged out and I'll log back in and then enter an OTP and enter like a CAPTCHA and do all these funky things over and over and over again, because my money is involved, right? And I feel like there need to be like more use cases. Of course, with solving some of the other problems, more use cases will evolve, and it's only a matter of time when users will start, caring a lot, because then they're going to start comparing stuff with, things that exist in the outside. I keep saying outside world, but what I mean is, in the non-blockchain world. And it's eventually going to happen when you'll see like social networks evolve, and then people are going to be like, hey, this is not as nice as Instagram. My experiences with Twitter are so much better. So is there a way to kind of so the problem is obviously you'll have to fight distribution of these very, very large incumbents in the traditional space, and simply stating like some of these benefits is not enough. You have to like compete at every level and provide these benefits for people to really say, okay, I'm going to leave all my friends who are on platform A behind and go and like create my whole new identity in this space and dedicate time and effort to actually kind of building whatever I did there, right? So that sort of paradigm shift will only happen if people get everything they're already used to and more. And the other issue is obviously that everything to do with blockchains is extremely math heavy, tech heavy, and philosophy heavy in order for you to kind of really be able to make any sort of dent, reasonable dent. So the people who are most active in this space are without a doubt the technologists, the developers and researchers, because they can deal with the math heavy and tech heavy stuff. And it's the advancements in the space are so rapid that keeping tabs on what is happening is just so hard. But just being able to kind of be in this very tech friendly, math friendly space allows all these people to kind of do all these quick iterations of research and development and just put things out there, and without too much care of whether people will actually use it. And like I said before, if you're putting out like a decentralized exchange or an automated money maker or market maker or any of those sorts of things, people will just come, right? So the general consensus for people is that if you build it, they'll come. But we are, I think, getting to an inflection point where that's not going to be true anymore, and just building stuff will not get more people, because now you need to kind of eat into the rest of the 99.99% of the world, which is already cornered by excellent quality services, no doubt about it, at the cost of your privacy and things like that, but all the same. So an entry into this space for someone non-tech is so much harder, because now you need to kind of spend time at least understanding some of the tech, some of the math, and definitely all of the philosophy, which is probably still the easier part. And then aligning yourself with all of this, because you'll have tech bros wanting to go at 100 kilometers an hour at the speed of light, and you're like saying stuff like, no, but what about the user? And then they're going to be like, no, you don't understand anything. And so just to be able to, this is the constant sort of like endeavor, right? Getting developers to empathize with designers and designers to empathize with developers. And it is so much more exacerbated in this scenario. And but yeah, which is precisely why we need more and more people, especially from like a design, product thinking, user-centric sort of background to come into this space, because the same 1 million people who are using, or 10 million people or whatever, who are interacting with cryptographic network, cryptocurrency networks and what have you, that number is not going to, it's going to be a trickle beyond this, like from the early adopters onwards. If you want to see that sort of like bell curve and a real spike, then you have to start caring about the rest of the people. So yeah, I'm going to like also now pause here before I go into like just the last parts. I have one more thing, very quickly.
Go ahead.
So yeah, the unfortunate thing is that this is now becoming like a real issue, where I think like just bad UX is becoming like this clear badge of honor that people and projects wear very proudly. UI is also no different now. You're starting to see like this extremely like almost post-apocalyptic sort of UI emerge, where you have unreadable fonts and terrible contrasts and like I don't know, jarring animations that might give you like epileptic attacks and stuff like that. And people are like, yeah, man, this is us. This is, and I kind of, I really like it that, people have this optionality to kind of be so extreme. I really love it, but it can get out of hand. And, while it's important to kind of have good representation across the board, I think just losing sight of the basic usability is something that we have to like really, really address. So yeah, I'll pause here.
Sure. Actually, Jatin's got two very interesting questions. Jatin, jump in and just ask the question yourself, please. It would be nice to hear you.
Thank you, Sharan, and thank you, Mayur. You are giving us great insights. So you briefly talked about the speed of decentralized networks, where you cannot expect a like to go through in a fraction of a second, if it was a social network. But what is the acceptable trade-off between higher speed that a user would want and maintaining the sanctity of the decentralized nature of the blockchain?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm nobody to kind of say that 1 second is okay or 2 seconds is okay and things like that. But what I can say is that, this requires like design intervention, and I'll tell you how. So essentially, the user needs to feel like whatever he intended to do, he or she intended to do happened, right? So give them that feedback first and foremost. That's point A. Point B, which is the harder point, is to ensure that that actually happens, right? So you tell the user that the like happened, let them move on and start doing other things. And then you kind of have to ensure that it actually happens. And this is something that is absolutely possible and requires both technological as well as design intervention. I can go into some details here. So just to kind of ensure that you try to do like a transaction in the background, and if it fails, you are able to kind of do it again and retry, and till it gets to a point where probably something drastically is wrong and it cannot happen. But otherwise, there's no reason for it to not eventually happen, right? So, and then you also need to take care of scenarios in the absolute like black swanish event that it doesn't. So yeah, I think that the answer is in trying to do all these sort of like interesting things, and what I might have described might be like a hack, but there's probably a more interesting and better, more elegant way to do this. And yeah, I think that should be
So
possible.
can I rephrase that question? So you tried answering that question from the speeds perspective, but more from the compromising the nature of decentralized app network.
Okay.
How would that play out?
Yeah, so this is that's a very important, good question. So how you do it is potentially, so if I have to like something on, say, like let's say a decentralized app built on Ethereum, right? So I need to sign that transaction. So my wallet is going to pop up and say, sign this and pay for it and submit this transaction. So we kind of abstract that away to the person building the app, right? So let the app builder pay for the transaction and the user signs. So the user does just a signature of the action that they intended to do. And then this action actually gets logged to like perhaps like a centralized server or a partially decentralized set of servers, which can be very, very fast. And then the developer actually then allows many likes to happen across the system and kind of aggregates all of them and uses some sort of like applied cryptography and mathematics and stuff like that. I don't want to go into those details. I can definitely offline if you want. And is then able to submit like one transaction and pay for it on behalf of the user, so that the overall experience and speed is really improved at the cost of some security and some decentralization.
Got it. Thank you for this answer. There is one more question I ask. I mean, can I ask that question as well, Sharon?
Absolutely, please.
Thank you. So other than crypto trading and wallet services that we have, and there are plenty of them, even nowadays they're also showing the ads on the cricket match. So yeah. But other than those two use cases, which are the other consumer focused or even business focused use cases? I mean, in terms of where blockchain right now is ready, to serve.
Yeah. So I would say like maybe 6 months back, definitely all the finance related stuff, all decentralized finance, basically taking traditional finance stuff that has already been digitized and then decentralizing all of it. So that is one area for sure. Then you definitely have games, which are becoming extremely popular, games on blockchain. Being able to incentivize people while they play games and things like that, improve stickiness. They start becoming like very and make them loyalists and completely brand aware, all of those sorts of things. Games are definitely an area, but now I would say that with a lot of progress happening, especially on the throughput front, and a lot of very promising things coming up. You have new layer ones like that are going to compete with Ethereum, especially on speed. There's the likes of Algorand and Solana, and of course Ethereum themselves trying to do eventually going to come up with X 2.0, where they're talking about roughly around 100,000 transactions per second, which is like a remarkable increase from their current 14 transactions per second roughly. And just to give you an idea, Visa does roughly around 40 or 50,000 transactions per second, right? So you're talking about a network that can do a lot, but even that is not going to be enough for the amount of stuff that is going to come our way in terms of use cases, right? We are going to be looking at, like I said earlier, literally every part of the internet is going to be reimagined to be more decentralized. Once we have better tooling, better UX, better options for users, better onboarding, all of those sorts of things, right? So I am extremely bullish on stuff like, say, social networks, new ways to do like do stuff around media when it comes to things like say video streaming, outside of being able to like publish blogs. There are a bunch of guys already building this stuff, but this is just going to like proliferate and grow into like really huge stuff. I'm not so bullish on stuff like that we expect to see on, say, the government side and decentralized voting and things like that, but I could be absolutely wrong. All of that could start happening, which is now then going to be a whole paradigm shift again. But yeah, banking, finance, all of these things are already disrupted in some way, and will continue to happen.
Understood. Thank you.
I just wanted to make an observation here, Mayur. I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I think roads were built because people wanted to send goods from one place to another, right? Just like that, I think finance paves the way in almost any field, and drives innovation, right?
Sure, absolutely. I think definitely commerce paves the way. I would use the term commerce.
Sure.
I just feel like this. Huh?
It's very important distinction, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not so sure if decentralized illiquid bond or some crazy shit like that is really going to affect too many lives right away. So, but yeah, I get your point.
Sure. The second point of I wanted to ask your opinion on is, I think we'll go through this phase of equivalence, right? Where you have a Twitter in Web 2, you'll have Twitter in Web 3. You'll have Facebook in Web 2, you'll have a Facebook in Web 3. So apart from that, there are these other trends, right? Where new monetization schemes and new ways of making money is even possible. That wasn't actually possible in Web 2.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and I think this is 100% true. You'll find clones, but the thing is, these clones come now with new business models.
Yeah.
And that's going to be like the big change, right? You're going to have people launch projects and fundraise from their users,
right?
Incentivize the same users who will pay them pay them revenues to like kind of keep the networks alive.
Sure.
And they're going to build these insane tribes that are be fragmented. Then the usual thing of fragmentation, aggregation, all of that stuff will definitely happen. It's harder to do with networks being on like disparate chains and things like that. But yeah, 100%, and it's all going to be because of the possibility of new and much better sort of business models.
Right. I think, Jatin, I just wanted to mention to you, there's one Twitter equivalent called Cloud, which is
Cloud.
Yeah.
Cloud. Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? It's a whole new way of thinking. Who owns the data, and who makes money through this entire thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're just seeing the beginning of things. There's a lot to come, I think. Right, Mayur?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I'm just going to like tail off with a couple of. I think I just have 2 slides left. Yeah. So how do you fix this, right? So my thesis is we need UX intervention across the entire stack that anybody builds, any sort of project, any sort of protocol. You shouldn't do it in isolation with only like researchers and developers. You need to get product people involved. You need to get designers involved at every level of the stack. And I'll give you an example, right? So something as simple as, so we are building a service, and to be able to use our service, or let's take for example like say for example Ethereum, right? Like we discussed gas and needing to pay gas. Now users require gas, which is basically some ETH to be able to fund transactions and even start interacting with the network. So firstly, there is a UX of getting a hold of some of these some ether to be able to like do stuff. Then it is making sure that it is available to you and safe in some sort of like a wallet, like say MetaMask. Not it's there on a wallet somewhere else, but some way of kind of being able to kind of move it around through like a crypto wallet. And you need to start figuring that part out. And then there are things like, in your country, are you even allowed to hold cryptocurrency? Are you an enterprise entity or a corporation, and say, let's say your company manifesto doesn't allow you to kind of hold digital assets, for example. These are all like so many problems to solve. And how you could solve it is just by telling people, and this is what we are doing, is telling people you can pay with your credit card, right? And this eliminates all of this complexity, which actually still is, but translates over to us. And it's our job to kind of abstract it away. And the ramifications are huge across our entire stack. And so, but end of the day, it is something that really benefits the user, and it is something that we need to kind of push for, because we'll just not end up with like people with trying to do this. We'll not even have revenue if the users don't come, right? So, which is why I very strongly feel like, we need people to be able to think of ideas like this, for example, and provide inputs, not just say we need to allow people to pay with fiat or, with their credit card, but further collaborate and be able to provide inputs as to why that is important, what benefits will that bring, and sit down in discussions of how it could actually be possible, right? So, which is why I feel like, designer is very key for almost every project. And it's a very, very important role to have someone who represents user needs, is more user centric, and, is not going to sit there and take, accept these so-called dichotomies of, oh, if you're a secure system, then you cannot be user friendly, or if you're a privacy preserving system, then you cannot be user friendly, which is like typical sort of, but it needs to come from a place of empathy. So, which is why I feel like, people definitely need to kind of, if you're a designer wanting to get into the space, so I would like kind of implore you to kind of go to YouTube, go to Medium, start diving into explainers, start reading white papers. You find explainers for those too. Look up what is like cypherpunk philosophy and how it's kind of evolved over the years, and where are these kind of people coming from when they're like doing whatever they're doing in this space. And this will help you kind of build a lot of not only knowledge and be someone that someone else will respect when you kind of make suggestions and or demand improvements. And it also kind of lets you come from a place of empathy, which I think is very, very important. So this is my one pointer in that direction of what could be possible. And like I said, I'm not here to offer any sort of like hardcore solutions, but I think it's important. There are reasons why, if we have currently failed at providing like exceptional user experiences, it's important to kind of understand the reasons for it and what are the ways to kind of perhaps overcome it. But this is too important and too big a problem, rather more than a problem. It's too important, like a movement, to kind of leave to like just like say the tech folk, and because they will take it and still run with it. I'm a tech guy, so I'm not trying to like diss anybody here. So it's too important for all of us. It's going to happen. Let's just try and make sure that we take more and more people along for the ride, rather than be like these elitist idiots, who are like, oh no, you don't understand this, and so you don't have to be here. So yeah. So this is my case for why I feel this is all very important, and I would love to kind of hear if anyone has any thoughts or questions, any of the sorts of things.
Mayur, if you can stop sharing your screen, you'll be visible on the recording after this. So, guys, please ask your questions as ideas must have generated in your minds. But it's funny that you mentioned, Mayur, that look up YouTube and explain us, because the minute I type in the first, look for the first video, I think YouTube is going to educate me all about crypto, right? But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the ability to do better Google and YouTube searches is very important in this space, because the signal to the noise ratio is really out of whack. There are too many people trying to like make a quick buck in this space, and you get all the wrong stuff. But there are some very, very good high quality resources that we didn't have back in 2017 or in 2018 that are available today to people. And I implore everyone to kind of start checking this out, because this, like I said, right, one way or another, this is coming for all of us. The better prepared we are, the better we understand this, the more successful we'd be at, getting on this train.
Sure. Any thoughts, guys? Or shall I start picking volunteers?
I think as I hear more and upon asking the questions, I feel that there is a lot more space to build than to improve the design, as I see right now. So if I were to wrap my head around doing something in the space of blockchain, then my immediate instinct is to build something instead of improving the design of something.
Yeah, so that's true, but the important thing is that you bring your perspective as a designer. I think I remember your background, and I think you run a design agency perhaps, and I think you're a designer.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So yeah, more designers should build blockchain products for sure, and build blockchain projects. 100%. The scope to build stuff is so much higher. There's no doubt about it. But there are more and more people realizing that they need like experienced designers, especially in this space, high quality ones. And all these people are extremely cash rich. They will pay you good money to kind of work in this space. I can tell you this for a fact. It's about what you bring to the table, but are you able to kind of understand what is required, instead of just being like the outsider who comes in, looks in, says a few things, goes back out, right? So if you want to be like a real contributor, it requires a lot of context building, which if you do, the point is that if you do it, then it's going to be extremely worthwhile.
Actually, you brought up a good point, Mayur. What do you think is I'll give you just 3 options. So what are the 3 things I absolutely need to know in order for me to learn about crypto? Any thoughts on this?
to learn about crypto, one is the Bitcoin white paper or the Ethereum white paper. Both are definitely 100% worth it. So if you kind of read that and kind of get to a point where you have some level of understanding, then you will understand so many other things, right? Of why this is important, what is the double spend problem in digital currencies, the Byzantine general problem, and how do you get people to organize even though they don't know each other. So that's a great, like, superb starting point, because if you can take that and also then dive into like analogous content around it, then you build a very strong sort of like context that covers different areas. Like, why is this cryptographically secure? What are the guarantees? Boom, here is it. Why is this important and going to change the world? This is why. Why was it not possible before, and why is it possible now? Here is why. So that's, I think, like the best sort of entry point. Understanding like public key cryptography is also one thing that I would say is very important, very easy to understand as a concept. Basically, I share something with you in a way that only you can access it.
Sure.
Right? That's the fundamental, like, underlying, that thing underpins everything you need to know about public key cryptography. A third thing is, if you want to do anything in this space, just double check whatever you're checking and reading, because they're very early days, and they're not only people out to like scam you and cause real world harm to you. You need to kind of figure out ways to see if any sort of content that you're looking at is genuine, trustable, viable. So you'll find signals for all of this stuff. There are indicators. Social proof is definitely one important thing, but not the most important thing. And there are other markers for legitimacy that you need to kind of keep a lookout for. And you need to kind of start training your eye that, okay, this is absolute nonsense, or, this is dangerous. And this is probably, a valid point of view or valuable.
Fantastic. That's great. We've overshot our time with you, but this has been one of the most interesting talks for me. Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you all for attending. I hope you guys saw the opportunities over here for as designers, as entrepreneurs as well. And Mayur, thank you so much for spending the time and highlighting all these opportunities in front of us.
Absolutely my pleasure to be here, and thank you guys for like doing this and setting this up. Would be more than happy to kind of do this any other time on any other specific subject in this space, because I want this problem solved myself.
Absolutely, right? I agree with you.
This is the future that I want to see. I want other people also to be able to see. And to quote you only, Sharan, we have to do it in the correct way. And there are too many revolutionaries out there. We need to like make sure we take the evolutionary path, and we need many people around to kind of enable that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And please watch out for next month's Experience Fridays. It happens on the last Friday of every month. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mayur.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayur.
Lizzie.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Sharan.
Cheers, guys. You guys.
Take care.